back to another set review. My name is Scott and we have an exciting one today. So Dominaria United, the previews are just finished. So if you haven't seen my set review videos, I do only look at Commander in terms of mono black. I build a lot of mono black decks, so I just have a look at where what is being added to mono black. Where is it possibly going in the future? Where are they kind of headings, things like that. So we'll have a look at what's on offer. So first I'll go through the commanders. So first up, Braids Arisen Nightmare, interesting one. Very excited for this one. So 1 and 2 black, it's a nightmare. At the beginning and end step, you can sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice the same card type. If they don't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. Really excited. It's a 3/3, whatever. All right, this one's super interesting. Very reminiscent of the first Braids that is banned. So it is your end step, so you get it on the turn you play, which is great. Artifact creature I think will be the most prevalent, creature obviously being more so, but artifacts still as well. Enchantment lands or planeswalkers. Interesting. Ultimately, I think that what's going to happen is you're going to sacrifice and your opponents are not going to sacrifice and you're going to draw 3 cards. And it's going to be a, 6-point life swing to you and you draw 3 cards and that's going to be fantastic. Sacrificing a land, probably the least supported. There are things like Crucible of Worlds, Drowned Temple, that can be recurable. Planeswalker I also think will be hard to sacrifice just because there's not much. There's a little bit of Planeswalker recursion, but the value is really to have them on the battlefield. Same with enchantments. Enchantments probably the least supported, I would also say. So the enchantment's interesting. There is Treacherous Blessing, which is probably the best one to sacrifice. You draw 3, then sacrifice it. They don't have enchantments or want to sacrifice their enchantments, so you then draw another 3 and they lose 2 life each. That sounds really good. That's 3 mana, draw 6. But I think most people are just going to go with kind of like an aristocrat style where this will be a nice draw engine. Be aware that your opponents may have some things that they don't mind sacrificing, so keep that in mind. I think I have tried building this at the moment. I'm going down like an artifact route. I changed my Fane the Broker deck to be this one with Braids and just testing that out to see what that looks like. I think it'll have a few changes, but going down a risk artifacts instead. So sacrificing your treasure and you can try to get other people with their artifacts. I think the strategy here is to sacrifice the thing that your opponents won't sacrifice so that you draw cards. But of course you would have set it up that it's not that bad for you. So Braids Arisen Nightmare, super fun. Moira, Urborg Haunt, 2 and a black. Spirit Wizard. Menace, when it deals combat damage, return to the battlefield target creature card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. So interesting one. It has Menace, so Menace is, I guess, evasion, but it's not really the best. So it has to deal combat damage and it has to return target creature, so you can't do it in response of the combat damage. But I guess what it's probably trying to do is you're going to go to combat, creatures are going to die and you're going to return those creatures because damage is done simultaneously and they'll be in the battlefield due to state they'll be in the graveyard due to state-based effects, and then you could target them. That's probably what they're thinking will happen, but ultimately this 3/2 with Menace is probably just not going to hit. So you need unblockable and you need creatures that you want in graveyards that will die, which you can't guarantee, so then you need sacrifice outlets. Ultimately, it's just a lot of hoops to jump through. I'm not sure what deck this would also be in. Mono Black Wizards? Mono Black Spirits? Rankle, Henny. I don't know. I don't know where this would go. But it's interesting. Maybe this is where black will be going future. I've always wanted to kind of make a mono black aggro deck. So this could be in it, maybe. Sheoldred, the Apocalypse. 2 and 2 black. Phyrexian Praetor, Death Touch. Who cares? 4/5, who cares? Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Now, you read this is the most boring card ever, right? It just does not sound interesting. But the build arounds and the cards that you get to play just going to be fun, right? So I have built a Cezanne deck before, which was a kind of a group hug, group slug kind of deck. So I think the shell of this will look very similar to that, the Temple Bells and the Howling Mines and things like that. We want our opponents to draw. The difference with that deck is it had discard to kind of supplement what your opponents were drawing. In this regard, you'll have life gain effects. So you have like Veto, Thorn of the Dust Rose and things like that, right? So because you're drawing cards as well, you're gaining life, so your opponents are losing life. So it's going to be probably look like something like that. Lich's Mastery is something that also goes with this. Specifically, Lich's Mastery says that you do not lose the game. So when you gain life, you draw cards, which means you draw cards, which means you gain life. So you're going to draw your whole deck, but you don't lose the game from drawing your whole deck, unlike other Liches. Another one, Peer into the Abyss. Just target player, draw half their library, lose half their life, plus lose 2 for each card they draw. Oh man, it sounds so fun. So I think Sheoldred will be a fun and powerful deck to build. Okay, the Raven Man, 1 and a black, human wizard. At the beginning of your end step, if you play a discarded card, you create a 1/1 black bird that can't block. 3 and a black and tap. Each opponent discards a card. Activate only sorcery. And it's 2/1. So when I look at this, I think of Tiny Bones. Tiny Bones is very similar, where you can. So this is on the each end step, just like Tiny Bones, and play discards, you get a bird, right? But in Tiny Bones, you lose life and draw a card. Both 2 mana. Is a 1/1 bird that can't block interesting enough? Am I doing something with these birds? But then if I'm doing something with these birds, I'm not discarding cards, which means I'm not triggering birds. So really you really need to be all in on this card and can't really do anything else. So you're just trying to get 120 points of damage with these 1/1 birds. Ultimately, I just don't think this is particularly powerful. I don't even think I would put it in a Tiny Bones deck. I think the only place that this is going to go in is in those hardcore Liliana flavor decks, pretty much. So the reason I've been excited for this set is that we haven't had a lot of great mono black commanders or interesting mono black commanders. We get 1 here and there and in every set, but this one we got 4. I think Braids Arisen Nightmare and Sheoldred the Apocalypse will be the popular ones. I think Braids and Sheoldred will also fit in the 99 of a lot of decks as well. I think Moira and the Raven Man are just not going to see play. I doubt I'll ever see them. But Braids, you'll probably see. You might see a deck. I think eventually people will move away from it, and then you might see it in 99. Sheoldred, I think people will really enjoy a Sheoldred deck. I don't think your opponents are going to enjoy it. So for those kind of play groups that aren't really into that, you're not going to see it. But super fun card. Really like it. So those are the commanders. Okay, so rares, which is essentially not the commanders. So we got 7. First up, Activated Sleeper, 2 and a black, 0/0 Phyrexian Shapeshifter. I lost it when I saw this card. I was like, oh my god, this card's busted. But then I kept reading. So Flash, So when it enters the battlefield, it becomes a copy of a creature in a graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn, except it's a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So I saw this, I was like, 3 mana body double. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. But it is specifically that's been put there from the battlefield this turn. So it has to have died, and then you can obviously get it back. Now it is also in your opponent's creatures, so you had to have killed a creature, that creature had to be decent, and you've had 3 mana after killing that creature. I just don't see that happening. There's a lot of these kind of 3 mana get something when opponent's creatures die and things like that. You might have sack outlets for your own creatures, but you might as well just reanimate. You know, so like body count is not something I really play, and that's 1 mana with Spectacle. You know, like it's just you just don't have 3 mana just hanging around often enough for something like this in those situations where they have a creature that you kind of want. Defiler of Flesh, 2 and 2 black, Phyrexian Horror, Menace, 4/4. So in an additional cost to cast black spells, you can pay 2 life, and you essentially replace one of the black pips with a Phyrexian mana, which is cool. And whenever you cast a black permanent spell, target creature you control gains +1/+1 and gains menace. Interesting. I think that converting 1 black pip into a Phyrexian mana probably not going to be that great. I think this will be really good in a Shadowborn Apostles deck. That might be fine, where you just have 1 black pip. That would be pretty nice. And you're just playing live, but then you're getting, so it's black permanent spells only, and target creature gets +1/+1 and menace. So it's not even like a counter, it's just buffs it and menace. Yeah, I don't really know what deck this would go into, and I ultimately think that just converting Phyrexian mana is not enough. Crick will do all black mana, but this would just do 1, where you might as well play something like I don't know, Herald's Horn or something like that if you wanted to. Yeah, I think people will try it out, but ultimately, who cares about +1/+1 and menace? Drag to the bottom. 2 and 2 black, has domain, so it's a sorcery that has domain. Domain's not really going to be relevant to us, so it's going to be X+1, so it's going to be 2. Give everything -2 4 mana. Not really, it's for 5 colors. Evolved Sleeper. Now this one could be so hold on, go back to Defiler of Flesh to cast. All right, so you can't activate abilities unlike Crick. Okay, Evolved Sleeper, 1 mana 1/1 human, whatever. Pay a black, it becomes a 2/2 cleric. So clerics are relevant somewhat. 1 and a black, it becomes, you put a death touch counter on it, and it's a Phyrexian human cleric, and it's 3/3. And 1 and 2 black, is a Phyrexian, becomes a Phyrexian human cleric. Sleeper is a Phyrexian. Put a +1, if it is, sorry. Put a +1/+1 counter on it, then you draw a card and you lose life. Right? This is just a lot of mana. It's a big mana sink for really a 3/3 that becomes a 4/4 that starts drawing cards after 6 mana. You know, if you have infinite mana, you could do it, but like there are other things that you could be doing with it. So ultimately, I think this is not too powerful. Shadowright Priests, 2/2, 1 and a black, human cleric, 2/2. Other clerics get +1/+1. Not really interested in that. 3 and 2 black, and tap it and sacrifice another cleric. Search a library for a black creature, put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. This is interesting, right? So +1/+1 to your clerics in mono black. It's not really a mono black clerics deck other than Shadowborn Apostles, so you might, I mean, I'd definitely play it in that. Sacrifice another cleric. Again, so you need to be again. So Shadowborn Apostles aside, you know, Yawgmoth is a cleric. Liliana Heretical Healer is a cleric. You know, there are just random clerics out there. Machias, the Unhallowed, is a cleric, I think. So, you know, you can sacrifice if you have your commander as a cleric, but would you want to? But you do get to tutor a black creature and put it on the battlefield. So black creatures, you know, Archfiend of Despair, Razaketh, things like that are big creatures that we want. If you're playing 5-color, Progenitus is a black creature, just saying. So yeah, interesting. I'm really interested. I don't know how many clerics I need to play to want, like, to be happy with this, like to always have a cleric around, and a cleric that I want to sacrifice. 100% goes in a Shadowborn Apostles deck, but this one would definitely, I'm gonna have to play with. The Cruelty of Gix, 3, so it's in a saga, 3 and 2 black. It has read ahead, so basically you can start in any chapter. First chapter, target opponent reveals and they discard a creature or planeswalker. Sure. Chapter 2, search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, so and lose 3 life. That's Grim Tutor. And then put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I don't know, better than Reanimate. It has read ahead, right? So 1 is definitely the worst. I mean, it fuels your chapter 3, sure, but ultimately I think that if I'm playing this, I'm always skipping to 2 most likely. So for 5 mana I Grim Tutor, then I reanimate or better reanimate, like I don't know, like Zombify or whatever. So that's like 9. That's like 7 mana for 5 over 2 turns. It's a cool card. Maybe 1 too expensive, but if it was 1 too expensive, maybe it was to be too good. Yeah, it's a cool card. I mean, it does everything that you want. You want discard, you want tutor, and you want reanimation. So I think this will go in a bunch of casual decks, and you'd be happy. It'd be cool. And skipping ahead just to chapter 2, you get the effect straight away, and then it's on the next on the next main phase. Sorry, after your draw step. So you don't have to wait that long. Like when it's 3 chapters, you have to wait considerable time, but you get it, and then you next turn you think. So it's like suspend 1, reanimate. That seems pretty good. I think this will be fine. Like, yeah, you stick it in like a rando casual deck. I don't know what you want. It's in what deck it would go in. It's just a generic kind of good stuffy card. But I'd have fun playing it. Okay, Tyrannical Pit Lord. So this is the jump start card. 4 and 2 black, flying, trample, 6/6. Enters the battlefield, choose another creature. It gets 3/3 and flying. And when this leaves the battlefield, sacrifice the chosen creature. I don't know. +3/+3 and flying. What do I want to give that for? And then if this dies, then it also dies. I don't know what deck this would go in. Choose another creature. Yeah, you control, right? So you can't be someone else's. Yeah, you just want to buff up your Voltron, so maybe a Corlash or something. And just go face. Ultimately, I don't think it's too powerful. So I'm not too interested in the non-commanders. I think Shadowright Priests is good. I think people are going to try Defiler of Flesh, and Cruelty of Geeks will be a fun card. Other than that, not too interested. Okay, so uncommons and commons. Not too much here. Blight Path for your defender decks. Cold Conscript, interesting, comes in tapped and it can return only if a non-skeleton died this turn. So, you know, for your kind of aristocrats decks, you know, if you want to kind of keep this going. The other problem, it's also non-skeleton, so that's also a reassembly skeleton that doesn't work with, which is a pity because that's the best one. But you know, blood ghasts and stuff like that. I don't know how many more of these you'd want in a deck. You know, normally I don't include like the gutter bones and the dread wanderers and stuff like that. I think after a handful you don't need too many, but yeah, interesting card. Cut down, also interesting. So destroy target creature, power, toughness 5 less. I think maybe in like CEDH Crick deck where this is just 1 mana, you know, kill something with stats up to 5. Yeah, that could be interesting. Seems okay. Knight of Dust Shadow. A, love the art. B, so it's 2 mana for your opponents, can't gain life. I just think that's a really interesting effect on such a cheap creature. But I mean, it's not really going to see play, but outside of maybe a Knight's deck. But mono black Knights could be a thing. We are going back to Eldraine, but it is focused on the wild, so maybe not. Pilfer, not really. Bone Splinters, Reprint. Whenever a creature, so Phyrexian Vivisector, it's only 2 mana. Whenever a creature dies, you scry 1. Seems interesting. Other than that, not too much here. So I think in terms of commons, uncommons, not really. People might play some cold conscripts, but that's about it, I think. Yeah. Okay, so just some artifacts as well. Not too much here. So Khan Living Legacy is not really something that we're looking to play. Khan Silex, it's a bit situational. Comes in tapped, but it is a board wipe. But ultimately, it's probably a bit expensive, I think. The Mana Rig, you know, we're not casting multicolored, so that's fine. Weatherlight Complete is an interesting one. Ultimately, I'm not too high on it, but it is 2 mana. And so it doesn't have a crew cost. Whenever a creature dies, you put a Phyresis counter on it. And then if it has 7 or more, you draw a card. If it doesn't, you scry 1. If it has 4, it becomes a creature that can start swinging, right? So I don't care about the 5/5. But it's 2 mana, scry 1, and then eventually start drawing cards. Good in your Aristocrats deck? Probably not. Probably not. But interesting card. I think people are gonna want to play it and eventually cut it. Jared's Hourglass Pendant. If a player begins the next turn, player skips that turn. Not really an effect that we're probably going to play. And then return to the battlefield tapped artifact, creature, enchantment, land in your graveyards that were put there for the battlefield this turn. I mean, if you're playing Nevinyrral's Disc, sure. You know, sure. No, because that would also get rid of this. I don't know. You have to play Nevinyrral's Disc, then play this. Yeah, not really something I'm looking for. Golden Argosy. So when it attacks, you exile creatures that crewed it, return them to the battlefield. So, you know, you flicker them at the beginning of the next end step, right? And it's only crew 1, so it's super cheap. So is there like enter the battlefield effects that you kind of want to keep happening? Maybe. You know, sell them some Relacrum or something you might want to. But yeah, there's some interesting enter the battlefield effects. You know, Massacre Worm could be interesting, but you're not attacking with it. I don't know. It doesn't have any evasion. It is 3/6 though. That's kind of cool. Interesting card. I like it. Obsidian Obelisk. It comes in tap, so it's 2 mana rock that comes in tap in its colors, and it can cast multiple colors. No thanks. Plaza of Heroes. So taps for colors. You can spend it on legendary spells. So your commander or any other legendary enchantments, artifacts, you know, Bolus, Citadel, stuff like that. Add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control. So once you have your commander, it's essentially whatever your commander identity is. So for us, it's black. And 3 and tap to give a legendary creature hexproof, indestructible. Oh yeah, I really like this. Would I play this over a swamp though when I'm playing Cabal Coffers and things like that? Probably not. But I have been tinkering around with a Field of the Dead combination for mono black, and this might just fit in it, right? Because you don't want to be, you're not really playing swamps, you want things of different colors. So I like it, but it's obviously going to do better in more colored decks. The Peregrine Dynamo, so 1/5 construct for 3, has haste, and you can copy abilities you control from another legendary source that's not a commander. Cool. For your legendary matters decks, another one that I've been wanting to do is the legendaries matter mono black deck, but there's not really a lot of support for it. But I do just want to have, like, I don't know, 20 legendary creatures in my deck and just, you know, flop it on the table. So that could be cool. It is legendary itself, which is nice. Portal Tram, the Tram Portal. So this one's an interesting one, if I remember correctly. So it is a gate as well, which is interesting for your gates deck, but it's not really mono black. Essentially, it will come in, you choose a land type. So this is really for domain in standard, but we would choose swamp. It becomes a swamp, and when you activate its mana ability for its swamp, you have to pay 1 life. Really not a card that we would use, but it is a swamp, which is interesting. I would probably put this in a Villas Broker of Blood deck. That would be kind of cool. You're tapping 1 and you're drawing a card, so that's great. Tiller Engine 2, untap, so when a land is the landfall, untap that land, tap target non-land permanent and opponent controls. It's nice for Cabal Cuffers, but, you know, mono black's not really a landfall deck, but it's a cool card, I like it. Hero's Heirloom, 2/2/1, it's legendary trample haste, and 2 to equip. I'm putting this in my Call-Ash deck. I'm going to try it in my Call-Ash deck, but, you know, mono black's not really a Voltron. And your Skitherix decks, you might want to try this, because you would love trample. I mean, it has flying. Maybe not, but Call-Ash, I'm going to try it. Inscribed tablets, 1 and 1 in the tap, and sacrifice it. You search the top 5, you get a land, and you put that land in your hand. I think this is just for standard. If you didn't get a land, you draw a card. Just really for standard. Jodas Codex has domain, not really relevant for us. Relic of Legends, so 3 for a mana rock of any color, and you tap and untap legendary you control, add 1 mana of any color, and you can do that for as many, you know, untapped legendaries you have. This is an interesting one. If you have a commander that you don't care if it's tapped, i.e. like Braids or Shieldred. I mean, Shieldred has Death Touch, but Braids, I mean, I'm not blocking with Braids. So it's 3 mana and you get 2. Seems interesting. I mean, how many legendary creatures do you have to have for this to be really good? Is it just 1? I don't know. I think this one needs to be tested. But could it just be 1? Like a commander that you just don't care about tapping. It is legendary creature, so it's not going to work with Liliana, Heretical Healer when they flip. Yeah, but like I wouldn't put this in like my Gisa deck, my Gisa zombie deck, for instance. But yeah, Walking Bulwark 1 has Defender. Target creature with Defender gains haste, and it can, you know, assign its combat damage to, as its toughness. Yeah, not really. That's a Defender thing. 3 mana, 3/2 construct. When it enters battlefield, scry 2. Not really relevant for us. So Crystal Grotto enters the battlefield, scry 1, and it can mana fix. More of a standard card. Salvage Mana Worker, another standard card where it's just fixing that mana. Shield Wall Sentinel Defender, you may search your library for a creature card with Defender. Really, not really. Also, I mean, you put that in your Defender deck, but it's not really a mono black thing. And Vanquish's Axe +2/+0. Yeah, not really. So in terms of artifacts, Weatherlight completed, I think people will try. I think people should try Golden Agosi and see how it goes. Plaza of Heroes is going to be cool. I think Portable Tram Portal is going to be interesting. I think Peregrine Dynamo is going to be interesting, but probably not for us. I think most people are going to try this Relic of Legends and see how it goes. So yeah, so that's the set. Super happy. Yeah, Braids, Shieldred, popular. I think Shadowright will be interesting. I mean, people won't play Cruelty of Gigs, and they'll probably rewrite, and that's okay, but I'm going to give it a go. Defiler of Flesh is going to be interesting. Activated Sleeper, I'm going to spend way too much time trying to think that this is good. And then that. So really, yeah, not too much for Mono Black. I think Moira might be indication of maybe where Mono Black might be going. But we'll see. And yeah, Weatherlight completed obviously adds something to Aristocrats. But yeah, not too much. I think really it just adds 2 commanders that people are going to enjoy. And that's about it. So yeah, I'm definitely, I've already started brewing Braids and Shieldred. I've got all the cards for Braids other than Braids, so that's actually really good. Shieldred, I need to get a few cards, I think. So yeah. So yes, that's the video. Cool sets. Interested. Looking forward to going back to Dominaria. Brothers War will also be an well, presumably an artifact thing. So we'll have to see what Mono Black kind of adds there. But yeah, super excited for this set. Yeah, and thanks for watching.